been sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Of the Get Ready for the Future show. Glad to have you along once again, coming to you from the 6th floor of 3 Financial Center in West Little Rock, Arkansas, where we help people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. That's the mission statement of GenWealth Financial Advisors, and it's why we're on the air here on the Get Ready for the Future show. Glad to have you wherever you get us, whether you're watching on the video version online or you're listening on podcast or radio. Settle in for some questions and some answers over the next half hour. My name is Scott Inman. I'm an advisor here in West Little Rock with the team, and co-founder John Shrewsbury.
I'm here.
He's the co-host today.
Yep.
I was going to say in Bryant, but you're really everywhere. You've got an office here in Little Rock and in Bryant. You park everywhere you get the chance, right?
Well, you know, they got to put me somewhere. Better there than in the corner someplace, you know. I don't know, or the broom closet or whatever. But, yeah, we got a lot going on for sure.
You know, I was looking, and just be a little bit of a plug for our Fastest Four segment, but today's Fastest Four segment on the radio side, and if you get it on the video side, it'll be delivered to your email inbox on Friday, June 20th. But we were talking a little bit about financial literacy in that Fastest Four segment. There's a new study out. It's not terribly new. It actually was held earlier in the year, but I just ran across it recently. Put out by the TIAA Institute and George Washington University. They do this. They've done it for 9 years. It's a 28-question test, and we'll talk a little bit more about the details of it, but it's basic financial literacy. And basically, Americans bombed it. The people that took the test, about 3,300 people, only 49%, John, were able to answer more than half of the questions correctly.
Doesn't surprise me. We do a pretty lousy job with educating people in this country about one of the most important aspects of their life, money. And that's really why GenWealth does what it does. That is why GenWealth is an education-driven company, because we believe if you understand, if you know what's going on, if you've got a good, perspective on your money, then you've got a chance to win. If you don't have a good perspective on your money, then you're fighting an uphill battle. You're fighting a lot of forces that you don't even really understand or see. And so I think that Scott, that study does point out the value of not only having a show like this where we try to educate you about what's going on with real world, real questions from people about their money situation, but also working with a financial advisor. Because if you're working with the right financial advisor, I can tell you they will approach things from an education standpoint. If they're just wanting you to sign some paperwork to get your money into an account, that's not an educational process. The educational process helps you to understand the why behind anything that they ask you to do with your money, and understand what purpose is it going to drive for you, and then you can decide whether that aligns with the purposes that you have, the plans that you have.
You know, you remember back in the, I think it was the 80s, on the children's cartoons that would come on Saturday morning, there would be a PSA, I think, that talked about knowledge is power.
Yes.
And I remember that as a kid, and that comes to mind here when you think about that in regard to financial literacy, because you think about, well, what difference does it make if I know all of this? Well, really, it doesn't if you just know it, but you know it and then put it into practice. That study revealed a real link between financial literacy and financial well-being. In other words, what kind of financial shape was the person in based on what they knew about it. So knowledge is power, and you can put that into action, and that's why we want to help on this show. If you want to get more details about that study and hear about all that went into that, you can sign up for the Fastest Four if you haven't already. It's real easy to do. You can just text the word FAST to 501-381-5228. Again, it's 501-381-5228. You can also visit fastest4.com to sign up. What exactly is the Fastest Four? It is a 4-minute or less video that we deliver to your email inbox. So you sign up by giving us an email address, and we're not going to blow up your inbox with a whole bunch of emails. We just want to send that to you every Friday morning. You can read the copy that comes with it, or you can actually watch the video. Either way, and hopefully get some more financial literacy into your life that can be applied to your financial well-being.
It's just like any goal, Scott. You've got to set yourself toward that goal and align all of your actions toward that goal, or some of your actions toward that goal, so that you can achieve that financial independence that we talk about.
So let's dive in. We've got some questions from people trying to achieve financial independence this week. Ginger is first up from Little Rock. We're 56 and still have $18,000 left in Parent Plus loans. Should we knock those out before retirement, or just keep making minimum payments and focus on our own future? Well, certainly if you're tied to the Parent Plus loans, Ginger, those are tied to your future as well. Paying for your kids' education should not come at the cost of your retirement. So when do you cut the cord on the Parent Plus loans? And at first look, I would say, hey, this doesn't look like a substantial balance, right? $18,000. So I would lean toward getting it knocked out, because you can probably do it relatively quickly if you set your mind to it. And you're 56, so you're probably still a little ways out from retirement. And doing that, I don't think would really cost you, hopefully, in terms of pulling back from your contributions that you're currently making. Now, that's first glance, because, John, there are a lot of things, as usual with our questions here, that we don't know.
Yeah, and let's be sure everybody understands what a Parent Plus loan is. It's fairly self-explanatory, but a Parent Plus loan is when the parent takes on the burden or the responsibility of a student loan for their child's college education. So if that's where you are, obviously you are already there, you have that obligation. So what do you do with that? I think that that question really turns on several other pieces of information. First of all, what's the interest rate of the loan? Now, unlike other student loans, these rates can be high. These rates can be 9, 10, 12%, depending on the company. And there's a lot of independent companies. These are not federally subsidized student loans or anything of that nature. These are done by, private equity companies, people that are, doing this for a living, and they're trying to make a profit. And so that the interest rate can be high. I think that also, if you're asking about, what you should do, make the minimum payment or just go ahead and pay it off, that really does depend upon the cash position that you're currently in. If you are in a good, substantial cash position, then pay for that thing and get it out of the way if it's not going to impact anything else in your finances. Obviously, you're going to pay way more over time because of the interest rate than you would if you just paid it off. So I think if that is something that you can do, I would definitely do that. Now, that is with a caveat of, where are you on your track for retirement? Ginger talked about being 56 years old. 56 years old is very near retirement. And so would that $18,000 make a difference on your retirement? Maybe, maybe not. I think that's something that you need to evaluate with a financial advisor. But if you are needing to put every dime that you can toward retirement, this may be something that you may want to have a sit down with your kid and say, hey, is there something that we can do now that you're out of school and working? And I'm assuming that that's the case, Scott. Maybe it's time to make a handoff here. And although the parent is still obligated for the loan, maybe the payment can come from the kid.
I want to circle back, too, to something you said about having the cash on hand. You know, I think about the emergency fund doesn't need to be tampered with. So we're talking about a cash savings above and beyond what your standard emergency fund is. So don't drain that to knock out the loan and save on interest. But beyond that, I can't tell you how many times that we have sat in a client meeting room, and a lot of our clients are pretty flush with cash, but they want that there for that security. And I get that. I mean, I understand it from my own personal perspective. When I start thinking about paying for something without borrowing, paying cash for something, what damage that's going to do to my cash pile, just in my mind, right? It's probably not truly doing a lot of damage to my cash pile because it's saving me from going into debt, but you do have a security. Once you get that cash in the bank, a lot of our clients don't like parting with it, but sometimes it very much is as simple as going, should I pay that $18,000 off? Well, you got 60 in cash sitting over here, so yes.
Yes.
It's pretty simple.
Because it's costing you money.
Yes.
As opposed to you actually earning money, it's actually costing you money.
Yeah.
And so clearly you need to do that. But I think the other thing that you've got to really focus in on here, Scott, is that Ginger is in what we call the retirement red zone. Mm-hmm. And the retirement red zone is very analogous to the red zone in a football game in terms of what you need to do as far as your finances are concerned, your retirement is concerned. You know, the middle of the playing field, as you're marching down the field, those are your working years. You're accumulating assets. But that first, that 20 yards before the end zone is in football called the red zone. That is where you've got to score. And in the 10 to 20 years before your retirement date, then you're going to want to begin to align yourself with being in a situation where you are ready to retire. That is where the ready to retire process name comes from, is that this critical time period, I would say about 10 years before you retire, is a preparatory time. You need to be getting all of your ducks in a row. And I think that this $18,000 has to be viewed in that context.
Yeah, and I think for the audience, you know, Ginger has to deal with the decisions that she made moving forward. But as John's kind of already alluded to wrap up on this question, we would not favor Parent Plus loans. Planning for your kids' college education is best done at the same time as retirement planning, as John's talked about. Get yourself on track for financial independence and then turn to funding education so that you know you could be gliding down both tracks equally. This points towards the value of planning early, too, because the kids could still be young, right? We do have lots of young adults when they just have a new baby that they start talking about how we're going to fund our child's education, and it's important to have yourself on track for financial independence first. And there are a lot of better ways to start that planning than trying to worry about taking out a loan once the child is in college. We've talked about the 529 plans before, the tax-deductible contributions that can occur there on the state level, tax-deferred growth, tax-free withdrawals for qualified education expenses. You can get the tax advantages there while the child still is in college, because I had a 529 I was contributing to actively when my children were in college. And I just basically cash flowed college, but I ran it through the 529 so that I could still get the tax deduction.
Absolutely. That's a great plan, great idea. But you make a great point, Scott, is that just like on the airplane, you got to put your mask on first before you help anybody else.
Hey, we want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content you can't find anywhere else to help you discover, protect, and share true financial independence. Please search for GenWealth Financial Advisors on YouTube. You'll see all kinds of things come up, including the Get Ready for the Future show, where many people check us out, and we're glad that you do. Our next question is from Rick via text message. I'm 63 and planning to retire next year. We've saved $920,000, but we've never worked with an advisor. Are we missing anything critical by going it alone this late in the game?
Well, that's a layup, huh?
Yes, you are. Hey, retirement is complex. The last question even kind of pointed that out. But if you just started, Rick, with the investment strategy, you know, when you were contributing to, or you are contributing to building that $920,000 in retirement nest egg savings, and you're invested in growth funds and your retirement plans, let's be honest, you could potentially stumble your way to $1 million or that
Sure.
$920,000. But the game changes at retirement. And he said late in the game. He's even using that. So we got to bring our graphic back up. We just talked about the retirement red zone. Rick, you're in it. You're at the tail end of it. You're marching into that 20-yard line, 15-yard line, 10-yard line. You're getting close to the goal line. And let's talk about just the investment strategy changes here that need to occur. John, we talked about if Rick was likely in growth, he and his spouse have been able to accumulate great wealth, $920,000. He doesn't say where he's from, but if he is living in Arkansas with some guaranteed income sources like Social Security, he probably can live a really nice retirement if he gets close to retirement. But the things that he needs to watch out for, there are 3 big risks when it comes to that red zone that could crater his retirement.
Yeah, if you think about the red zone, if you're just even a passive watcher of football, you know that the tension gets high, and the nerves get frayed when the team gets in the red zone. When you're close to the goal line, you've got to score. Well, what does that mean in retirement? It means very simply this. There are risks that you are facing in retirement that you are not facing before retirement. A very clear risk. Now, you think about risk being market volatility. Well, yes, that is a market volatility. That is a risk that you have with market volatility both before and after retirement. But the risk in retirement is different because you are now not accumulating, where actually volatility does help you by buying more shares with the same amount of money, dollar cost averaging. Now you are actually reverse dollar cost averaging. You're pulling money out of a portfolio. And if it is all at risk in a growth fund, then you are facing what is called sequence risk, or we would call it timing risk. See, what we don't know is what the market is going to do in the future at any particular point in time. And I will tell you this, if anyone tells you they know what the market's going to do, they're probably lying to you because no one really knows what the market is going to do. That being said, what you've got to do is you've got to stack everything in your favor. Now, what causes reverse dollar cost averaging, as I said, is pulling money out of a volatile portfolio when you are in retirement. So what do? You put part of your money in a non-volatile portfolio, a very conservative, very liquid, very low risk portfolio, so you can feed you the paycheck that you need every month. But now you also face two other risks that are 180 degrees opposite of the one that I just described.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with that a little bit differently, Scott.
Yeah, I think opposite's a great way to describe it, because the reaction, I think, that comes naturally in my mind when you say, hey, if you're in all-in growth and you're trying to withdraw, you are subject to sequence risk. The natural reaction, especially for somebody getting close to retirement, is to go risk off. Okay, I don't want to be in growth at all.
It's like that old joke, when a guy goes to the doctor and he says, Doc, it hurts when I do this. And he's like, well, don't do that.
Well, don't do that, right.
And so that's what people tend to think about when you say risk. They go, okay, well, I'll just avoid risk. You can't avoid risk.
Right, because the next risk, if you take all the risk out of the investment part of it, is inflation risk. And we know that's not a risk, it is a certainty. We all went through it a few years ago when inflation was as high as 8%. Now, you don't need 8% cost of living adjustments on your income, but you do need 2 or 3% to keep up with your purchasing power. And you can't do that by going risk off and being all conservative in your investment strategy. So a portion of your strategy does still need to believe in equities and believe in that long-term growth of the stock market so that you can have more money when you reach later dates in your retirement and increase the monthly income that you're receiving.
Scott, here is the real strategy here. You've got these two bookends. You've got the conservative side. You've got the growth side. In the middle, you've got more of a balanced approach. But the real strategy here is to refill that bucket that you're pulling money out of periodically. You're going to refill it with the profits that you get from the equities and from the balanced portfolio. You're going to basically harvest money out and put it over here in the storehouse. As far as the conservative investment is concerned, that allows you to elongate the time to allow those growth buckets to work themselves out if you do have a downturn in the market. We've had a lot of volatility in the market. When countries are throwing missiles at each other, people get nervous.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of volatility, but here's the interesting thing about it. Our clients here at GenWealth are pretty calm about all of this. Are they concerned about things in the Middle East? Absolutely. Are they concerned about their portfolio and how it's reacting? Not so much so, because we've already done the work that's necessary to buffer some of that and to align their portfolio with a time segmentation strategy that allows for them to just remain calm when things get a little bit crazy.
And it's written down, it's illustrated, it's in a binder. They have it to refer to when they do get a little worried. The final risk is longevity risk. And you think about that, living a long life is great, but it is a substantial risk to your portfolio, which is providing you income. So I've been fond of telling people for years now that if you tell me your date of death, we'll build the perfect retirement income plan. Nobody knows when that's going to be. Now, health factors do matter, but you still don't know how long you're going to live. And if you prepare for a long life and you don't get it, that is certainly better than not preparing for a long life and getting it. So those buckets that John showed on the screen just a moment ago that are providing you income and are divided into an investment strategy, there's still a bucket at the end of the plan, which may be age 90, so that if you've lived longer than age 90, there is a reset button that can be hit on the plan and you can continue to receive income. There's also ways to protect against longevity by adding guaranteed income potentially to your retirement income as well. You will likely have Social Security. Maybe there's a pension. Do you need to use a portion of your assets for an annuity that provides guaranteed income? That question needs to be worked out through the planning process. And we could go on and on, but you're right, it was a loaded question because we haven't even talked about health care, long-term care, taxes. An advisor's value, John, should be in more than just investments.
Yeah, absolutely. And the planning process is really where I would look to an advisor to guide me through. If they are not adept at planning, then they're probably not the guy for you if you are planning to retire very soon, because there's just too much complexity to wing it. There's just too much complexity to think about it very simplistically from the standpoint of, oh, well, I threw money in an account to build it up. I'll just take money out of the account to spend it down. That works until it doesn't. And then when you don't have that, you don't have a do-over. And so I think that definitely, to Rick's question, working with an advisor is very critical. And I don't think that it's too late in the game, as he says, to do that. I don't think you need to go it alone. I do think you need to fend for yourself. I do think you need to be on guard for, just anybody out there that would take your money. But I do believe that the planning process can dovetail with Rick's goals and help him to get into retirement and hopefully discover, protect, and share true financial independence.
Yeah, I agree, John. It's not too late for Rick, but it is certainly time to do something about it. There is some urgency if you're 63 and we're planning to retire next year. So for the rest of our audience, if you're getting close to retirement, if you're in the red zone, and especially if you're going to retire next year, have you thought about these things we've been talking about? Would you like to walk through the GenWealth Ready to Retire process? Reach out to us via toll-free 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You can set up a first complimentary appointment with a GenWealth financial advisor near you. We have offices in Little Rock, Conway, Hot Springs, El Dorado, Bryant, and Northwest Louisiana. So there's an office close to you if you live there geographically. We can also set up a virtual appointment no matter where you live and discuss what our services could do to prepare you for retirement. There's no cost, again, no obligation to work past that first appointment. So I would encourage you to do that. You can also send us an email and we can communicate that way. Just send it to show@getreadyforthefuture.com. And for Rick, we want to give you a Get Ready for the Future Show tumbler. We're going to name your question the question of the week, primarily because we just spent, a half an hour talking about it. There's a lot there, a complex retirement question, and we love talking about that. We're going to send you that tumbler if you just email us to claim it. Send it to show@getreadyforthefuture.com.
Scott, Rick needs to make a move, whether it's with us or somebody else. Rick needs to make a move and get the advice that he needs to get into retirement.
And anybody else who is like Rick certainly needs to do that as well. All right, our next question is from Denise in Morrilton. My husband just got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he's only 65. How do we adjust our retirement strategy when we're facing uncertain care costs? A major diagnosis can certainly change everything, Denise, emotionally and financially. So we're going to talk about how to build a plan when life throws you a curveball, and that emphasis on curveball, it could take many forms. We just spent a lot of time talking about the written planning process here at GenWealth. We know that is a first draft. We know that is the first piece, but that plan is living and breathing and has to be adaptable because we know everybody is going to get a curveball. And John, the best time, obviously, to plan for the unexpected is before it happens. But since we're talking about, with Denise, adjusting her retirement strategy, we certainly have to assume that she has one in place already.
Yeah, and I want to jump in on what could be maybe a very timely issue here. She talks about her husband is only 65.
Yeah.
Here's the key. He qualifies for Medicare at age 65. Not sure if he's still working or not sure of the circumstances, but let's just generalize here for a second. Let's say he went on Medicare at age 65. He has a window of opportunity where he does not have to prove insurability to get a Medicare supplement policy. Medicare supplement policies pay for Part A and Part B Medicare benefits that are not covered by Medicare itself. You want to have a Medicare supplement policy to go along with the Parts A and B of Medicare to cover all those major medical expenses that you're going to be facing. And if you are still within that time frame of qualifying for a Medicare supplement policy, I would not walk. I would run to an insurance agent that does that for a living, and we can put you in touch with people if you need that in your own situation. But I would not walk. I would run and get that coverage in place if you are still within that time frame of not having to prove insurability. If you get outside that time frame, then getting a Medicare supplement policy is going to be highly problematical because of the Parkinson's diagnosis. So I just wanted to throw that out there, Scott, because that's a critical thing that they could be facing if he just turned 65.
Another really timely situation there. So that part, Denise. And then we talked about the retirement strategy. We hope it is in the form of a written retirement income plan, but whether you have one or not, it is time to reset with this diagnosis. We would take the asset level that you have right now, incorporate Social Security and other guaranteed income sources to see where you land on income, and then we can see if you can sustain your lifestyle without using all of your assets. I think that would be a key goal, to be able to create a separate health care bucket for your husband that would be invested based on your risk tolerance and as close of a time horizon as you can assume. Certainly getting all the Medicare things straightened out would be paramount first, so that you know what your out-of-pocket costs might look like. Very hard to determine that at this stage of the game, but you will get a clearer picture. And I think, again, zoning or really focusing in, John, on being able to peel off some of her assets to grow for a future time would be a very big key for me.
Yeah, I think that you've got to play both problems here. You've got the problem of the healthcare cost and what have you. And you know, you always think about healthcare cost in terms of what the big dollar amount of the bill is, but insurance does play, and Medicare does play a huge role in that, and that's why I was so quick to talk about a Medicare supplement policy. But you also can't just throw everything at this problem, because let's just say the worst happens and your husband passes away. Then you still have to live. You still have to be in retirement. You still have to survive and pay bills and things of that nature. So there has to be money available for you. So I think you have to have a bifurcated approach to this, Scott, for them to be successful.
We've got time for one final question. Very little time, so we'll get right to it. Hustling for Chris in Little Rock. We're 50 and thinking about taking money out of our 401k to help our son with a down payment. Is that ever a good idea, or should we steer clear? Nope, not a good idea.
Did you hear my car brakes squealing when I hit the brakes really quickly and went, stop, don't do that.
No pumping the brakes. You slammed them here.
Slam those brakes, because number one, you have to think about it this way. You are taking from your financial future to give a jump start to your kid. And that's not a bad thing in terms of a spirit thing, okay? That's not a bad thing at all, wanting to help your kid. But doing so to the detriment of your retirement is not a good idea. Your kid has a long time and has much more human capital availability than you do. And that's a term that we don't use a lot around here. But when you think about the actual capacity to make money, if your kid's getting started and needs a down payment on a house, who gave your down payment on your house? who gave your parents a down payment on their house? Maybe somebody did, but maybe they were already taken care of as far as their own situation is concerned. Scott, I don't know that I can ever justify sacrificing your own financial future for getting somebody started, because I've just seen it go so wrong so many ways over my 30 plus years in this business.
Yeah, and I would also say let's put some math behind it, because that doesn't add up either, Chris. Assuming your funds are in a traditional 401k, every dollar will be taxed at ordinary income tax rates, okay? So the withdrawal would be stacked on top of your other income. So if you and your spouse, let's put some numbers behind it, make $200,000 a year, and you take out $50,000, most, if not all of it, would be hit with a 24% federal tax. And since he's from Little Rock in Arkansas, that's going to be about a 5% state tax. Oh, but wait, there's more. Chris, you're 50 years old, so you're not 59 and a half yet. So by taking a withdrawal from your 401k at age 50, you would likely be hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty. So now we're talking about potentially having to pay 39%, close to 40% of your funds in taxes and penalties. But then there's the other piece of that, John. If you take it out, you lose the future growth of those funds as well.
Well, and I guess you could probably execute a loan against the 401k and avoid some of the penalties and taxes and that type of thing. But you're also taking that money out of your investment, out of the market. And when you think about the power of compound interest and how that money can compound and grow over time, then again, you're doing yourself a disservice. Figure out something else to help your kid. There's lots of options. Having the kid to save some money for a down payment might be the right thing to do, both from a financial standpoint and from a moral standpoint, just to build some character in your kid to do that. I just don't think that it's ever a great idea to cross that boundary. Now, if it is a dire emergency, that's a completely different situation. But to just do this to give them a jump start, you've got to think about it this way. If you intend to ever have financial independence, if you ever intend to have a decent quality of life for your retirement, you've got to have all of the cylinders pumping for you. You got to be sure that that engine is fine-tuned. Going in and ripping out, $50,000 or whatever for a down payment on a house is like taking like 2 or 3 pistons and just locking them up in an engine. It just doesn't work.
I had a client that wanted to pay off their house in their 30s. And they had a good start on retirement. They had about $250,000 saved, and that was what we managed here. It might have been more than that. It was more than that now that I think about it, outside, because he had an employer-sponsored plan. I showed him the math that I just went through on the show here, but it didn't matter. They did it anyway. They went against what I was telling them and did it anyway, and they took out about $100,000. So if you think about that, at their age now, certainly Chris here is older than, he's not in his 30s anymore, but with an 8% return over 30 years, that's not guaranteed, but just assumed, over 30 years, the $100,000 would be about $1 million. With that same 8% return over the same 30 years, the $250 would be worth about $2.5. So you think about the piece that is missing by taking that money out. Making a single bad financial move can crater your financial future. Time for our final thoughts there, John.
Scott, as I think about the questions that we've had today, I think that people have got to get back to the main thing. Our mission statement at GenWealth is that we help people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. And I think if you took a poll, everybody would say, yeah, I want to be truly financially independent. But do you really want that? Is it something that you're willing to focus on and put effort into and, frankly, make hard decisions about? All of the questions today really kind of surround that whole issue of, are you focusing on what should be the main thing in your financial future? We talked early in the show about education. We talked about that GenWealth is an education-driven company, and we talked about financial literacy. You owe it to yourself to be educated about issues that are going on in your life so that you can enable yourself to become truly financially independent. You need a great partner in that, and that is a great financial advisor that is an expert at financial planning, helps you to map out the moves that you're making, and actually acts as a buffer or a coach to come alongside you when you want to do things like take money out of your 401k to give it to your kid for a down payment on a house. They can help you talk you off the ledge.
Is it time to hire that coach? Is it time to hire a financial advisor? You can reach out to us here at GenWealth, toll free 866-653-7526, or you can send us an email, show@getreadyforthefuture.com to set up your first appointment. And that is all the time we have for the Get Ready for the Future show. Thanks to everybody who sent in a question. We'd love for you to send one in for next week's show. Just leave us a voicemail or shoot us a text to 501-381-5228. And we'll see you again next time.
The GenWealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.